series. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Antelek Everett.
Here.
Mrs. Gadsden. Excused. Mrs. Galbo. Here. Mr. Garnett. Delayed. Mr. Munoz.
Here.
Ms. Patchen. Here. Mr. White.
Here.
Mr. Soff.
Here.
Mrs. Thompson. Here. Dr. Walkley, will you review the fire exits, please?
The fire exits are directly in front of us.
May I have a motion for executive session?
Motion to adjourn to executive session to review the employment history of a particular individual, and the board will return as soon as possible.
Second.
Comments or questions?
We have a special presentation for the beginning of the workshop, and so I'm going to introduce Dr. Sieverdeen and Mrs. Orlando.
Thank you, everyone. We wanted to present tonight to three students, Kayla, Angelo, and Brandon Bernardi, who represented Beacon High School at the Congress of Future Medical Leaders in Boston this past summer. Justin Young also represented Beacon at the National Academy of Future Scientists and Technology. They received an official award of excellence for their participation in the conference, and Beacon High School is honored to present their awards to them.
Okay, thank you for giving us this opportunity. And I can only say, wow, when I just tell you a little about what the students did, and I had an opportunity to talk to two of them. One student who just got it today, Justin. There were two different categories. But just listen to what our students were exposed to. Okay? They went to this conference, and they had an ability to meet and work with people such as those that are just completing and still working on the Human Genome Project, where they mapped the entire DNA for humans and other species. People like Francis Collins, who's the one that spearheaded that. Craig Ventnor, the same project that he worked on, and Jack Sistak. All these people are MDs, PhDs, and doing the latest cutting research in the fields. Other specialties, a man by the name of Boris Luchniak, and he is now the Surgeon General of the United States. People like Stephen Ray Mitchell, he's the Dean for Medical Education at Georgetown University. Bohdan Pomako, who is a Harvard Medical School professor, and he's the director of burn and plastic surgery, and he works out of Brigham and Women's Hospital out of Boston. And he's the one that has done all that work with face transplantation for people, who were injured in fires. And then there were other mentors as well. They have included Buzz Aldrin. We all know Buzz, and he was one of the past mentors there. David Wineland, who won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 2012. And these were the kind of people that our students had an opportunity to work with. And also students who have excelled in medicine, science, and technology as Intel science winners and so forth. So I asked some of them, so what did you do the entire time? There were about 1,000 kids there in a huge field house listening to these people. So you have to be pretty good to keep 1,000 kids for 3 days in your attention. And that's what happened. So it was just a wonderful experience. And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Anna for making this happen. So we'd like to present our students, with the awards that they received. So we'll call them up and you can come and get your certificate.
And the first one is Kayla. This is what the awards look like. Brandon.
could you repeat his name because we were clapping when you said his name?
Brandon Bernardi is our next.
One more.
Okay.
And Justin Young.
One picture of all three we can.
So.
Good. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Maybe Mrs. Orlando will nominate me next year, so I can
So, Dr. Sieverding, could you tell us a little more about the program? Like, how were they selected to go? Have we had students in the past go to this program? Because this is something new. I haven't heard much about
This
this.
isn't a regular leadership conference, this is more for the STEM, and we were getting the flyers in June. Some of the kids brought it to us because we sent the actual application with their names for the outstanding. They had to have a certain GPA, so we had to go through lists and see who actually qualified, and then we sent out the nominations. So when they got their nominations, it usually had our names on it, one of the guidance counselors, and then we had to complete the application process with them, write the letters of recommendation. And then when Brandon went, I was getting emails throughout the summer of his participation in the program, so I knew he had finished it. And Kayla, I found out after the fact that email came a little late. So, and then Justin's, we found out later because the technology part was after the medical part. So it's any student who was interested in within the STEM fields. And as guidance counselors, we have to go through our list and we see which kids qualify, and then we nominate them. And not everyone gets, can go because of their GPA or they don't meet the exact criteria. And then they have to actually fill out applications as well.
Awesome. Great job, guys.
Thank you very much, and I'll invite the students to leave because I know they have homework tonight probably. Our next presenter is Mrs. Kellogg, and she is going to tell us about the conference day we just had.
Thank you, Dr. Walker. Just need to wait for the screen to go on. It takes a minute. There we are. Soon it'll be on. Just give me. What's that? Yes. While we're waiting. Yes.
You know what? While we're waiting, I'd like to call up. Where is she? Cecilia?
Yes.
If you'd like to come up and talk about the parent group.
And what was that?
She had a.
Oh, a PowerPoint.
Well, we can do that. That's no worries. Let's do that first.
That's okay. Leave what you have. So, thank you this evening. Celia Dancero Rumley, and I'm the Director of Pupil Personnel here for the district. And I'd like to introduce Mr. Lionel Lutley, who is one of our parents. And we just wanted to share and open an invitation. As you may be aware, over the last several years, we've had a district pupil personnel sponsored but parent facilitated support group for our parents of students with autism. And that will continue again this year. The Lutleys have agreed to be the facilitators. The first meeting will be on October 15th. They're held here at Beacon High School in room C-138. And we'd like to open the invitation and welcome any and all of our families of students with autism. What I'd like to also suggest is any of our other families with students with disabilities, if you're interested in organizing other parent support groups, we certainly would be willing and help to encourage to get that off the way. So we have some information. We're going to post it on the district website in terms of who to contact if that's of interest. And we certainly would be happy out of pupil personnel and on behalf of all of our staff to help support that. But I'd like to give Mr. Letley a couple of minutes just to talk about the work of the group and what role it plays to support our families.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Well, the only other thing to add really on the organisation for the October 15th meeting is it starts at 7 o'clock. We welcome all parents and carers of children with autism. It's an opportunity really to learn about the support networks that we have in Beacon, to share our experiences, positive and negative experiences, and also we have we're going to try and organise between October and May each month. We'll have a different guest speaker hopefully, or we'll have educational videos, or we'll just be talking about our experiences. So we welcome all parents to join us. Okay. Thank you very much.
So thank you.
All right, now Mrs. Keller.
Okay, very good. Get this up here and slideshow from beginning. Alrighty, what I'd like to do is just share with you some of the highlights from the Superintendent Conference Day. We began the day with a kickoff address that I gave. I had spoken about a mentor of mine from when I was going through my educational leadership workshops and conference and certification, Dr. Tom Sobel. And the quote that he shared with his staff: "What happens in our classrooms is almost a daily miracle. I am in awe of the complexity of our job, of what one needs to know to do it well, of how much energy and love it takes to do it superbly. Talking with teachers reminds me of how important our work is, how good it feels to do it right, and how proud I am of this profession." And one last quote that I agreed with wholeheartedly is that he said, "I don't know of any work I would rather be doing, and I hope you feel the same." And this was addressed to our teachers and our teaching assistants to give them support for the work that they do and to help them understand how much we value and appreciate them. I then went on to, in the spirit of the literacy launch, because that was the lion's share of our day, although we had a lot of wonderful things going on, I read excerpts from a book that I felt was very inspiring, and many teachers felt the same way. So I would just like to share just a few pages of that book with you. It is called Of Thee I Sing, and written by our president. It's a letter to his daughters, but he speaks to folks that were inspiring and to inspire them to be everything that they can be. So he begins, "Have I told you that you are creative? A woman named Georgia O'Keeffe moved to the desert and painted petals, bone, bark. She helped us see big beauty in what is small, the hardness of stone and the softness of feather. Have I told you that you are smart, that you braid great ideas with imagination? A man named Albert Einstein turned pictures in his mind into giant advances in science, changing the world with energy and light. Inspirational figures, much like those that our students that we just celebrated tonight received in their program. Have I told you that you are brave? A man named Jackie Robinson played baseball and showed us all how to turn fear to respect and respect to love. He swung his bat with the grace and strength of a lion and gave brave dreams to other dreamers." The book goes on and really speaks to many, many inspirational people in American history that can inspire our students to be everything they want to be. And it also touched on almost every discipline, and I thought that that would be something that would be valuable to the teachers sitting before me. So the choices were quite vast. We had the literacy launch for our pre-K and 8 teachers and teaching assistants, and then also for our 9th through 12th grade, 2 different presenters for those groups. We also had a level 1 and a deeper level 2 presentation of CASA Learning by a very well-versed presenter from that organization. Curriculum development crossed many, many areas. K-12 art, and part of their day was spent at the DIA. And there'll be more information about a special program on Community Day, October 10th, where they did some great collaboration, and our students will be involved in that. K-12 music program, we had further curriculum development with our secondary math teachers, science teachers, K-12 physical education. Marty Nemechek had brought his teachers together, and they had a fabulous day. And our K-12 related services folk, our school psychologists, social workers, and I need to hand it to Cecilia and Ashina. They got really great feedback, and I have to say, having a great deal of fun, as a matter of fact. As I was walking through from the different venues, I really wanted to spend time with PPS. They were doing some cool stuff. The literacy initiative, we had Steph Harvey here and the consultants that will be working with our teachers for the embedded professional development work. And what they did was Steph talked about the importance of these components in any literacy initiative, modeling and practicing research-based explicit comprehension instruction, and our teachers will be using these comprehension toolkits as a resource. They're a framework. It's not a program. It is an approach to reading strategy instruction, so it can be blended very well with things that they're already doing, working on. Continuing, and this is really important, the gradual release of responsibility as a structure, as a framework for not only whole group instruction, but small group instruction as well, and supporting teachers to design, implement, and sustain a workshop model in their ELA classrooms to deliver instruction. Small, flexible, needs-based groups are important in a literacy program, providing carefully scaffolded support based on close observation of kids' work, modeling and using the strategies across the curriculum, and then also focusing on formative assessment. That is assessing while teaching, paying close attention to student work and thinking, student work and thinking to inform next steps in our instruction. So those were some of the highlights that Steph was articulating during the workshop. These are some of the books that the teachers will be working with at the secondary level. They'll be using comprehension and collaboration. They have the books already. They've been going through it. They had them that day. They had time during the workshop with the presenters to go through the materials and answer guiding questions. Strategies That Work is a book that many of our teachers, pre-K through grade 8, will be using as a reference and a resource, and we're hoping to have some book discussions around those, book talks, book studies. Steph Harvey, again, was our presenter, but Ann Goodvis is a colleague that works closely with Steph. They co-authored this book, and we're very fortunate because at the middle school, our consultant will be Ann Goodvis working with the students. And the next day when the consultants were here going into the different schools, Ann spent the entire day working with teachers, working in classrooms, and actually doing some demonstration lessons. So it was really very valuable. These are the components of the toolkit that teachers will be using as a resource. So these are some of the materials that will go with our launch. Here are just some, let me just talk a little bit about the evaluations. All of the evaluations, about the workshop, about the Superintendent Conference Day have been done online through My Learning Plan. And the ratings are on a 5-point scale, from poor to outstanding, with 5 being outstanding. And I have to say, in pouring through all of the evaluations, each workshop was rated good to outstanding on a host of levels, and many very good to outstanding. So that was really good to see that. And I will share those evaluations with the different workshop presenters, facilitators, so that they have that for future work. And here are just some of the comments. Collaborating with colleagues, discussing strategies with science colleagues, and collaborating on curriculum outcomes per quarter, interdisciplinary collaboration with the PPS colleagues, and I love this comment, and changing fixed mindsets to growth mindsets. Was just some of the comments. And here I won't go in, I won't read these to you, but if you'll take, I'll just give you a moment if you want to just peruse those really quickly. But these were some additional comments that were provided by the workshop participants. And I've shared this quote, I think, before, but it's worth repeating. Every effort must be made in childhood to teach the young to use their own minds. For one thing is for sure, if they don't make up their own minds, someone will do it for them. And that was by Eleanor Roosevelt. So, and there is my workshop. Highlights. Any questions I can answer? Sure.
Who is facilitating the other groups? So it looks like Stephanie Harvey was working with the English and Social Studies, because I see the other breakout groups did not include the Social Studies.
Correct. So for the pre-K through grade 8, it was all of the teachers in those environments. Well, pre-K through grade 8, all of the teachers were working with Stephanie just for the literacy. For grades 9 through 12. And content area folk, science and math, they were working on curriculum development work for their content area with the content coordinator facilitating those efforts. So, so we had content coordinators, so we had Michelle Beakley working with music, we had Claudine Farley working with the art teachers, Dave Riley is content coordinator for math, Alexa Marinaccio for science. We had Marty, again, working with PE, Cecilia and Sheena working with the PPS staff. So, yeah. So not all teachers were involved. We also had the Castle Learning, which is an online resource for teachers that several teachers were involved with as well.
Can you explain what the Castle Learning is, so they may not be familiar with it, just to help start with?
Castle Learning is an online resource that teachers use, particularly at the secondary level, where particularly in the content areas like math or science, even foreign language, where teachers can develop test questions, for test questions, having students go on it for resources, and they can even use the program, after school or online at home. So it has some valuable resources that teachers dug deeper into, and were able to put their class rosters on in the program, so to get a better understanding of it. We have at least one of our teachers that can turn key information to teachers as well. Mr. Castaldi has done some excellent work with that for
It's
several
not new to the
students.
district.
No. This is our second year, I believe, right, Barbara?
It could be the third year.
Third year, okay.
Do we know how many teachers are using it? Like, is it widely used, or is it still?
The first pilot was in the middle school, and I believe most of the middle school teachers utilize it. It's becoming popular in the high school. And I think some elementary teachers have gotten into it as well. I think there's probably more that use it than don't.
And we had quite a few sign up for it, and really great feedback from the participants. So now I know that more will be using it, and using it, to its full advantage, I think. So.
But the important thing to remember, though, is it's available to the children at home.
Yeah.
So any child that's taking many of our courses in the high school, and even for some of the middle schoolers, the algebra.
Correct.
They can go on, and the Castle Learning, just to enhance the work they're doing
Correct.
at home.
Yeah.
There was also a training that the district ran, I think it was last school year, on Castle Learning, and I attended, and one of the things I learned was that the teacher doesn't necessarily have to be using it for the student to access it at home. I believe that's still the case, that the students can log on. So even if their particular teacher doesn't find it useful, some students who may want extra practice can
Correct.
access it.
And it may be worthwhile bringing another workshop back to district again and offer that to families in the evening.
Yes, because I believe that parents can assign work to their children as well through the program, so we can have a parent night with that as well.
And can you just let us know when is Stephanie Harvey coming back? Because it's a whole year PD that she's doing.
It is. Staff will be back later in the year. The consultants are coming back. We have consultant and Goodvis at the middle school. Lynette Emmons will be at the high school. And Angela Schroden and Kristen Zemke are the consultants they're sharing. Angela is working with Glenham and Forrestal, and Kristen is working with South and Sargent. They will be back in November, March, and again in May. So, and each time they come for 2 days. And there's opportunities at the end of the first day for teachers to work directly with them on any questions that they have. And every time they're in the school, they're working with a host teacher to demonstrate a lesson. There is a pre-brief before the lesson demonstration, and then a debrief, so that teachers can really get a full understanding of how to implement the comprehension strategies.
How are those host teachers decided? Is it the principal picking?
Through the principals, yeah. We defer to the principals on that. Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you,
Okay.
Ms. Kelly.
Thank you.
Karen.
Thank you.
A few weeks ago, we had a forum where parents came and talked about many things, but also about increasing communication. So there are a number of ways that we are looking to communicate in different ways, and we're going to just do a brief discussion around 3 of those, and Anne Marie is going to share with us a new feature that we have on the website.
Thanks.
Dr. Walkley would like we're going to show you a brief explanation of our calendar. We've had some changes in it. I just want to go through how someone would be able to access it off of our website, and a couple of different features that are new to the calendar. The calendar, if you click on the left-hand column, the calendar of events, it's in a calendar format, and it's all of the schools and the district office events on the calendar. Let me just close this out. If you click on this portion here on the Google Calendar, it allows you to, if you have Gmail, it allows these events to be put into your own Gmail account. If you don't have Gmail, there are other web addresses that you need to actually cut and paste and put in to, and it has, depending on which calendar you want to use, you can actually put them onto your calendar. The important part with this is that when we make changes on the website here, it automatically will update across the board. So it'll update your personal calendars as well. So if you want, if you don't have Gmail and you want all of these specific things, you have to just cut and paste the web address each individually. If you have Google Calendar, I am under the assumption that yes, you can download it all together. So that's the portion there on the website, and I just want to show you another feature of it. If you wanted to just go and look at, I'll use Glenham Elementary School for example. If you just wanted to look at Glenham and you looked at upcoming events in a line format, it has all of the dates here. So it would be the school plus all the district. All of the schools automatically get the district events as well. But this is in a line format similar to the way you see the sports calendars, because we had changed the sports calendars a couple weeks ago. So again, this is all in real time, and if you download the links onto your phones or on your computers, you'll be able to keep up to date if there's any changes made that way.
Can we ask
That's-
questions about it?
I'm sorry?
Can we ask questions about it?
Oh, okay. I'm not so sure I know the answer, so if I
Okay.
don't, I will ask.
Or is it one person putting in the information, or all the building administrators inputting the information?
We've had it a couple of different scenarios, so we're working on how that's going to work forward. So we've had the building administrators be responsible. We're working out the details part of it to see if we're going to house it all together or whether we're going to keep it separate.
Okay, just because I was asking, just because it seemed like there was some scheduling conflicts when there was open houses and so forth, so if they were inputting it, I was wondering if they would be able to see, Glenham had their open house this day, so Rhinebeck would have it a different day, or something.
Right. When we did the actual paper school calendar, we had all of the Google calendars merged that way. So that was the first year we did that, and I think that's kind of what happened. There still needs to be a person inputting, but also reviewing to kind of see how it all fits together. When you're looking at all the calendars separately and then you're putting them together, you have to, again, look for the conflict. So the Google Calendar was new to do the paper calendar, and now it's also different on the website. So I think we learned a lesson that way as well. So. Okay.
A second way that was suggested for communication at the forum was possibly having an article in the Beacon Free Press. So Mrs. Kellogg has graciously offered to do that. And we have contacted the Beacon Free Press, and they are discussing that idea and seeing if that's something that they'll allow us to do. So the plan would be a few short pieces every week, something from one of the schools, something maybe at a district level, and some of the great things that are going on in the district. And a third way that we're reaching out is we talked about having more forums, and the format that was proposed was to once a month have a morning session and an evening session. And so this is a set of dates that you can pass around for October, November, December, and we'll see how it's going in December, and if we want to continue. What I would ask is, if you are planning on coming, if you could please contact Teresa. There's a number on the bottom of the page, a phone number and an email address. And that way we'll know whether we need a bigger room or need to move. So just know that the locations may change, and if you register ahead of time, we can email you or call you and let you know when that is. The last thing that I want to talk about is a proposed change this evening to the calendar, so that you are aware of that. Originally on the calendar, there we go. In November, on November 19th and 20th are the 2 days we're looking at. Originally, right now, in the approved calendar, there are 2 shortened days. On November 19th is a shortened day, so that we can have parent-teacher conferences in the afternoons. And the evening of November 19th is the evening where parent-teacher conferences would also be scheduled, and then we had a shortened day planned for parent-teacher conferences in the afternoon on the 20th. So when you put it down on paper, in terms of how we've always done it with a release day, a day that the students don't come to school, and parents come for parent conferences, and an evening. And on paper it looked pretty good until we had a busing schedule. Once we put in the busing schedule, then we lost a number of slots for parents to sign up with. So the teachers requested via the principals that we make some changes. So these are the changes that were suggested. The suggestion is that November 19th is a regular full school day for the students. It would not be a shortened day. And that the evening would be the same as it was already planned. The evening of the 19th would be the same evening that parents would sign up for parent-teacher conferences. And then on the 20th, that would be a full release day. The students would stay home all day on the 20th. And so that parents and teachers can come together and have discussions throughout the day. To be able to do that, however, means that it would affect March 4th. March 4th was originally assigned to be a conference day for professional development. The state only allows us to have 4 conference days. So if we have a day off for parent-teacher conferences, which is considered a conference day, then we would need to give up the March 4th conference, professional development conference day. So the proposal is to have the 19th be a full day of school with the evening conferences. The next day, Friday, would be a parent-teacher conference day. The students would stay home. And then March 4th would be a regular school day where students would come all day to school. So that's the proposal. It is on the consent agenda tonight to make that change. Any questions?
How would we notify the parents that signed up for the parent-teacher conference day and a half day? Are they going to be, is this it, or how would they be contacted for that?
The principals, I believe, when the parents were signing up, had a tentative schedule that reflected this change.
What happens if they didn't, though?
Pardon?
I don't think it did. Okay.
I know the ones that I saw in the middle
Mine were
school
right.
reflected this schedule.
But I would think if anyone has a question, certainly they could contact their teacher. If for some reason the teacher didn't have the right schedule out there, but mine was right.
So then can I ask, for those students at the high school who attend BOCES in the afternoons, this is going to affect, because I know we got a letter at the beginning of the year,
Yes.
letters were mailed out at the beginning of the year regarding, because of some of the conference days, whether or not that was going to impact busing. So will this high school contact?
Yes, so that they will have busing on the 19th and no busing on the 20th.
And then March 4th.
And then March 4th would be a regular day where all the busing, all the students who have busing would have busing. Okay? And that's it.
Thank you, Dr. Walkley. That's Carla. Thank you to Ms. Orlando and Dr. Sieverding for presenting the students and their awards tonight. That was wonderful. We hope to see more of those presentations in years to come. And best of luck to the new leadership in the autism spectrum group. Best of luck to you. That group has been ongoing for a number of years with great success, so we hope to see that continue. I'll quickly review the agenda. We'll have student and school presentations, parent groups, open to the public, superintendent's report,
Board comments and committee reports. Frank, I think that's you with your paper here.
Sorry.
We'll then have the consent agenda. We do have an addendum to the consent agenda. We will not be using a second executive session. We will then adjourn the meeting. There are a couple of corrections. In the non-instructional personnel list, item D, his effective date says 9/23/15 through, but it's not. It's only one day. He was appointed for only one day. And then number 11, which is the addendum to the consent agenda, which is an addendum to the non-instructional personnel list, is an appointment of the school nurse for Glenham School. Do we have any students or school presentations tonight? Any parent groups? Okay, open to the public. Mrs. Galbo is going to read in Mrs. Gadsden's absence.
The Board of Education has established a single period for public comment at board meetings not to exceed 60 minutes. All speakers and meeting attendees are to conduct themselves in a civil manner. Obscene language, libelous statements, threats of violence, statements advocating racial, religious, or other forms of prejudice, as well as disruptive conduct, including calling out, will not be tolerated. Speakers may generally comment on any matter relating to district business. The president and/or the superintendent may respond to comments when all speakers have finished. There shall be no further public comment or dialogue regarding the responses provided by the president and/or the superintendent. The rules are applicable to such public comment as set forth in Board Policy 1230, a copy of which is available in the sign-up book at the front of this room and on the district's website.
Thank you. Mrs. Farley, would you like to go first?
Good evening. My name is April Marie Farley, and I just wanted to thank the Board of Education for all of their hard work, and I also wanted to just give them an accommodation from the executive from Dutchess County. September is Albinism Awareness Month, and this is the first one, and it was wonderful that the executive and myself put in a proclamation for Albinism Awareness Month because June 13th was International Albinism Awareness Day, and throughout the county and throughout the state, this would be the first. So as next year approaches and the end of September, it's awesome that we would be able to let people know that more information about albinism. And this is a great opportunity to let people know, especially with the new Director of People Services, that you can go to albinism.org and get information that will help anyone with albinism, any person with albinism, to get certain accommodations on their IEP. And I'd like to thank the Board of Education through over the years with Mr. Mulhern, because he's always been very accepting and very open to any kinds of accommodations that would help people with albinism, and it's really important. So I just wanted to read this, and this is Dutchess County Executive Albinism Awareness Month proclamation. Whereas in the United States, 1 person in 17,000 is affected by some sort of albinism, whereas albinism is an inherited condition present at birth, characterized by a lack of pigment that normally gives color to the skin, hair, and eyes, whereas people with albinism are at risk of isolation because of the condition, often misunderstood, and whereas the resolution welcomes increased international attention because in many parts of the world, awareness of human rights situations persons with albinism remains limited. And whereas the resolution also recognizes the importance of increasing awareness and understanding of albinism in order to fight against global discrimination against persons with albinism. Now, therefore, I, Marcus Molinaro, County Executive of Dutchess County, do hereby proclaim September 2015 as International Albinism Awareness Month in Dutchess County. So I wanted to present that to our superintendent, Dr. Wolfley. And I also wanted to work with the People Services in the future to bring more awareness, because there are many people in the community that have albinism, but it's also important for the teachers, the staff, and the students to know things that can help someone in their way. And I can honestly say that the school has always helped my son as far as lighting or anything that would help him. And so he's always been, just felt so comfortable in the Beacon City School District. So I just want to thank you guys for that. And I also wanted to just bring attention to one of the assemblies that we were talking about last year, breaking the cycle of violence through forgiveness. And I have a brochure just in case you guys want to do the assembly this year. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, April, for bringing awareness to all of us.
Okay. Ms. Lutley?
My name is Susanna Lutley. I'm an aide over at Forstall, and I have 2 children here at the high school. Should be 9th and 11th, but are 9th and 12th, because my daughter basically skipped her junior year, but she has to double up so she can graduate. She is taking AP US History, and I find it rather disheartening that those classes are using texts that were published in 2007, which is the 5th edition. There has since been a 6th edition that came out in 2011. And that in order for them to keep up to date with all the changes that the College Board are putting forward, last year it was one curriculum, before that it was another curriculum, and now they're back to another curriculum, the children have to have this review book. My daughter, on doing one of her first assignments, was unable to complete the assignment just from her textbook alone. She had to have this review book. Her teacher, who is now, I believe it's the first year she's teaching at Ms. Clemens, to her credit, out of her own pocket, is purchasing some of these review books. And she wants to try and have as many kids as possible to have them, but she's forking out anywhere from $18 to $20 per book, and she has 100 students. Fortunately, we can get that book for our daughter, but that book is changing again. The new book is coming out in November. And I recognize, school year started and we're not going to get a new textbook this year. But what I would like to know is, are there any plans to update the textbooks in the AP US History class? This is supposed to be the top history class in the school and challenging the kids, and I think it's very important that they have the most recent textbooks, and I find it rather sad that my daughter and the other students who are taking AP US History don't have that. Thank you.
Thank you. Jody Macredo?
Hi, Jody Macredo, Beacon parent. I wanted to thank you for the calendar and for the new forums and for listening to a lot of things that came up at the forum that we had. I do appreciate that. I do see a lot of positive momentum, and I do appreciate it. So thanks for that. I do still have some questions about the TOSAs that I wanted to present. I didn't write anything down tonight. I think I misunderstood what the TOSA positions were. I thought that they were teaching their normal classes and then they were pulled out periodically when they were needed to assist. I did not realize that they did not teach for the year at all. And what I had heard recently was that at least one of the TOSA positions in the high school, the teaching position for that TOSA was not replaced. So now this teacher is working as a TOSA all day, and some of the English classes, from what I've heard, have now increased in class size because there's not an extra teacher to teach those classes. So I was a little curious about that. I want to know if we're necessarily putting our resources in the best place, and with the TOSAs in general, if these are the highest performing teachers, aren't they better to be teaching the students than teaching the teachers? I've also been informed that Dutchess County BOCES, who I believe we already pay a fee to, offers professional development at no cost to us at this point that would kind of serve a lot of the purpose from what I understand the TOSAs do present. So it would seem to me that maybe we could be taking advantage of that and let these teachers actually teach their classes, because it's something that we do seem to be lacking right now. And I'm still just a little confused as to what their overall position is and why it's so necessary, and what we have to show how effective that they are, and how they are actually helping in the positions that they are, because I feel like that question's been asked a lot and it hasn't really been addressed as to if there's a way of gauging their effectiveness and gauging how much it is increasing the professional development for the teachers. I need to start writing stuff down. That's it, thanks.
Thank you. Clarice?
Ellie, 2 kids in the district. I just want to address 2 issues. One is APPR. I know I keep asking about it, but I know the new deadline is coming up, and I'm just curious about the plan that's in place so far for the new APPR. Was there a committee established for it? If so, what are the positions that people hold on the committee? And what are the rubrics for developing the Heidi Band score for the new APPR? And what have you developed so far for the SLOs, SLOs, however you say it, for the teachers? And then I also wanted to address AIS. I had heard that in the past there wasn't really a plan for AIS, or it was sort of like after-school test prep, but that it's supposed to be taking place during the school year. During the school day, rather, not after school. So I'm just curious, what was the AIS process before, and what is the projected process? Is there a new AIS curriculum, and if so, can we view it, and where? That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Nicole?
Hi, I just wanted to ask about the TOSA brochure that was discussed. I don't know if that has come out yet or if it's been circulated. And then I was wondering if each board member could give and tell us your rationale for your TOSA vote from the previous board meeting. And then at a previous board meeting, it was stated that you were planning to keep more diligent records of the work that the TOSAs do. And I was wondering if you could give us an update on the work they have done so far in this current school year. And then I also wanted to piggyback on the mother who spoke before regarding the textbooks. It seems to me that it's odd that there's a textbook. There's a lack of textbooks if you had the projected school numbers from the last school year. And I'm wondering that if the school numbers only increased from 45 to 47 in the AP history courses, why there's a lack of books, and how and when you plan to rectify that. Thank you.
I'd like to address the textbooks. Every year we receive money from the state to purchase textbooks. And when I've been here, I work with Anne Marie and the principals, and to make sure that we expend all of the textbook funds. They're expended throughout the year. Teachers do have to let us know what textbooks they need. So I will be speaking with Dr. Sieverdeen. I have not seen any requests for textbooks.
I have a little information just on the AP history. We do realize that there are 2 different editions in that class. We just realized that now. And I spoke to Dr. Sieverdeen, who spoke to Mr. LaFaro, who is the department chair, and we're in the process right now of ordering those books so that all the children will have the same edition. I wasn't aware that there was a new edition coming out in November, but we were trying to get the children all the same edition, the most recent that's available now.
The book that is coming out in November is a review book that's put out by, I guess, Comas or something, and it's a review book that's separate from the textbook.
The textbook. We're trying to get all the textbooks to be the same. And we're actually, Mr. LaFaro and I are working on actually placing the order either this evening or tomorrow.
Okay.
So we'll get it in.
So the process is that the teachers work with their, if they are at the level that has a coordinator, they work with a coordinator who works with the principal to put in textbook requests. Once Anne Marie receives those requests, she uses the state money that is set aside for textbooks to purchase. And no, Anne Marie, has that money been expended for this year?
Not all of it has been expended, no.
Right. So we do still have textbook money, so. All right, next.
We gotta make sure nobody else wants to speak.
I know, I just wanted to answer that, so we didn't get to.
Okay. We've completed the list. Oh,
Can I don't think, the new public comment policy, the first reading's up today, where would be answered. Is that the end of the public session?
no, I was about to.
Oh, okay. I didn't
do
know
that
if we talked about the new
She
public
just was
comment.
the last person who signed up. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, the last person who signed up has spoken. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Okay.
Do you want to just put the book back out there?
Well, the book isn't going to do anything. I think that they can work together to ensure one goes after the other. Just please give your name.
Anthony Tsangs, parent, taxpayer, community leader. At the last board meeting, there was something about the STEM. I haven't saw anything on the website yet. I wanted to get more information about it. Being an engineer myself, I am personally interested, and I'm always also trying to bring the community into the school district. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Michal North. I'm a parent and a taxpayer. And I had a question about the HR position. We've been told in the past that there were 25 candidates, I think, and it was down to 7. And now when I go to the district website and I click on employment opportunities, it says that there aren't any. But when I click through to OLAS and BOCES, the HR position is listed again, and it says that you can apply until October 3rd. So I'm confused about the status of the HR position. The other question that I had, the calendar right now has 5 half-days for professional development, and with those 5 days, I believe we're coming up to 182 instruction days. That counts those 5 days as full days. So I'm a little bit concerned that A, will the students get enough instruction? And B, how are 2 working parents or single, working parent going to cope with 5 days additional days in the school year where you have to pick up your kid at 1 o'clock in the elementary school? And also, I think last year we had a lot of snow days, so that's on top of it another issue to deal with for parents. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Lori Murhage. I have 1 child in the district so far. I want to address the board and ask about how can we go about contacting you directly. I know that there is a process by which emails sent to the board are then collated and given to the board members before the Board of Ed meetings. But I do know that sometimes there are timely concerns that parents have, and some of them tend to be a little last minute, or at least in a day or 2 leading up to meetings, particularly committee meetings, things you might be discussing outside of the board meetings, like the public comment, for example, that you guys recently discussed. And some parents are finding that their emails aren't being received in a timely manner because they're going through the system. And it would be wonderful if each of you were able to provide us with district emails that we could contact you directly. I know that sometimes people use Facebook and other media, but I feel like that's kind of limiting. It would be wonderful if the board could give us an email list to which emails could be addressed to each of you directly. Thanks.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Corrales. I'm a taxpayer and a parent.
First of all, I just want to say thank you to the Board of Education and the administration for the opportunity to speak here tonight. It's so important for citizens in our community to have a place to gather and to communicate directly with you. It's very important. I really appreciate it. I'd also like to say that I see some wonderful things happening in our schools as the new year has begun. I see vibrant and active PTSOs. I see beautiful schoolyard gardens. I see amazing teachers and have met them at my daughter's 2 open houses who are making a real difference in children's lives every day. And I see an engaged, involved, and informed parent community that truly cares about the welfare of this school district. I'm grateful for all these things and all these positive aspects of our community, and I feel that it's very important to point out the positives as well as the concerns. I do have a couple of questions for you this evening. Now that the school year is underway, I would like to know what the Beacon City School District's policy on high-stakes testing is regarding parental rights and test refusals. The governor has made a statement about the fact that parents hold the final word on whether or not their children participate in high-stakes tests. Therefore, will there be a change from last year's policy of requiring each individual student to verbally refuse the tests while in school? Will parental refusal letters be honored? I'm just going to skip to my last part here. My second question has to do with the new BTA leadership. Given the recent change in the Beacon Teachers Association leadership and the obvious significance of teachers as stakeholders in the public education process, can you comment, please, Dr. Walkley, on how the administration will be working with the new BTA leadership this year to foster a relationship of true collaboration and mutual respect as our new school year progresses? I feel this is very important, and especially with new leadership, we're in a new school year. I'd really like to hear some of the ways that you're working with them this year to foster those things. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Robert Atwell, and I've been a resident of Beacon for about 40 years, and a 1982 graduate of Beacon High School. I've been honored to have had the opportunity to taught many of your children. I'm a 27-year veteran math teacher, coach, advisor, mentor, who's been a model employee during my time in Beacon. But tonight I'm here as a taxpayer and a parent of children in the district. As you may or may not be aware, on Friday, September 4th, 2015, the superintendent conducted a hearing regarding my son's school placement.
Mr. Atwell, I have to ask you to stop. Our board policy specifically states that we cannot talk about one individual child for the security of that child and their privacy. I have to ask that you stop the conversation. The board policy as read, that's in the book, states clearly that we cannot discuss an individual student.
Even if it's my son?
Yes, yes. It has. We've had the same thing in other circumstances.
Okay. If anybody wants to hear the rest of this, I'll be outside.
Hi, I am Carla Springer, parent and Beacon taxpayer.
I want to hear it.
Our children, can we hear it later? Because I want to hear it. I definitely want to hear it. Our children are our future. It's cliche, but it's true. They are the reason we're all here today. They're our future doctors and teachers, and military personnel, and artists, and musicians, scientists, engineers are all coming out of this school. And what happens here during their formative years will change and have an effect on their future. Over a month ago, in a board meeting, we were told about a student in our district that was threatened by the board attorney. We were shocked. And we haven't heard anything since. It is not okay to threaten a child, or board members, or elected officials, or anyone. It's not the way that life should be. We're not here for anything other than the education of our children. We're fighting for that. You care. I know you do. So my questions are for Melissa Thompson. Please let us know if the board council has had any verbal communications apologizing to the student. At the last board meeting, Dr. Walkley stated, and I quote, "You know, I do make a lot of mistakes. You know, when I'm not making a mistake, then you'll know I'm asleep, because that's when I don't make mistakes." We all heard it, and it was a bit shocking. So, Melissa, what I'd like to know is, does the board regularly evaluate the superintendent's performance? On what basis is the superintendent's performance evaluated? And is there an opportunity for public input as a part of the evaluation process? And finally, has Dr. Walkley acted unethically while working here in the Beacon School District? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Meredith Hewer. I'm a parent, taxpayer. I wanted to thank the board for changing the way the board meetings have gone by moving the executive session. I feel that that's working really well, allowing parents to get here, and just it seems more efficient to the parents. I also wanted to thank the 3 board members, Georgia Patchen, Bill Zoff, and Christine Gallo, who were at the policy meeting last week, and I thought they made some very sensitive comments about how public comment works, and we're hoping to see some change, and I think that will change the way the board meetings go in general. So I personally look forward to that. I had one question, and that is that I could have sworn at the budget hearing there was going to be a full-time band teacher that was shared through all the elementary schools, and I don't think that's happening. So I wanted to know if that was the case and if that got changed and why, if that's so. Thank you.
Good evening, Kristen Flynn, parent and taxpayer. I'd like to ask about the DSIP and the plans for parent involvement in the DSIP. I know that the community and parents and stakeholders are supposed to be a big part of developing this plan, and we've been doing research and meeting with people and talking about ways that we can contribute, and we're really excited to do so, and would love to find out what the process will be for that, and if there are people, more than one parent maybe, who's being considered for that role, and what the process will be throughout the year.
Hi, my name is Travis Fisher. I'm a parent. I have a couple of concerns. One is about the calendar. I was also counting days, and I see 179 and a half days in the calendar that's on the schedule to vote today. I think the requirement is 180. Somebody should double check that. And the question, is this a decrease in the number of days from previous years? I think it is. And a decrease in or an increase in the number of days that parents are expected to make extra arrangements for their kids. I also have a question or comment on communication. Dr. Walkley, I've been trying to email with you. I'd appreciate it if we could use that as an avenue of communication. I think that's really the easiest way to make certain discussions. Specifically, I've been trying to discuss about why exactly Beacon is a focus district. I've been digging in and trying to understand. No, it's difficult to understand. You've made mistakes before about saying exactly what is occurring. My understanding is that we are classified as a focus district because of performance of economically disadvantaged students in the high school and because of the performance of students with disabilities in the high school. And those are really the only two groups of students which are forcing that focus district and focus school status right now. And in particular, because of this, the opt-out on testing in grades 3 through 8 has no impact whatsoever on our classification as a focus district, because again, the focus school is only the high school at this point. So parents should feel free to opt out their children from exams without having any concern that we might be reclassified as a focus district because of this, at least in the younger grades. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Donna Haynes. I have two kids that go to the high school, one in 9th grade and one in 11th grade. And I wasn't gonna, I didn't have a thing to say when I walked in, but when I heard Mr. Atwell start to talk and then wasn't able to speak, I could just feel his emotion, and his emotion brought back my emotion from an experience that I had. And I'm not going to talk directly about the experience because I understand you have a policy. But when you're a parent and you're going through something with your kid, yes, that's an individual, but at the same time, it can happen to anybody's child. And when you're going through something, you can feel like you're drowning, and you need answers, and you want to talk, and you want other people to know, and you just want to have that exchange. And if that's what he was trying to do, I could absolutely dig it, because when I was going through something with my child, I was so tempted to come here and speak, and I needed to speak because I couldn't figure it out, and I wanted you all to know. And I don't know how you knew. You may have known because of, a single document, but you needed to know that there was more to it than that, or you needed to know just how I felt as a parent, and I wanted other parents to know, because maybe they don't know how, all of the ins and outs and all of the stuff that is going on behind the scenes here in the district. So I understand where he's coming from, and I understand your policy, but you might want to try and reevaluate that policy and figure out a way for a parent to be able to come here and say what they need to say. That's, it can only help all of us, and you have to understand that. Thank you.
Can I go twice?
Do we have a policy on that?
Well, we just broke a little policy tonight by doing it back and forth, so let's just go with it.
Run with it. Here we go.
Yeah, I think I have something left for my 3 minutes initially. So.
Yeah, I think you were short.
Mr. Atwell's case does remind me also of my own cases, but I'm not going to speak about my own case. I have heard complaints from parents that the school dictates, I guess, certain rules to them, but there is no advocate on the parents' end. There are situations, it could be the IEPs with the meetings that they have with the pupil services, not at Mr. Mulhern's left. In other cases, it's where the student is assigned to. Divorce cases is always messy. I can testify for that. But the children are the ones that are we are advocating for, and the parents do have rights. I don't know where the checks and balances are when the school district disagrees with what the parents want. Obviously, we've been here for quite a few meetings arguing over what the parents disagreeing with the school district are. And I do understand the struggle of handling something that is negative. I'm of the opinion that I would like to address a negative decision head on, as opposed to trying to get around the issue. Hopefully goes away, stuff like that. I think information is needed. I think education to the parents is needed and what their rights are. And maybe even perhaps an advocate system so that the parents know who they can turn to if the school district denies them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just so you know, the policy does say one time.
It does say one time?
Yes.
And that's even before our change, our making any recommended changes at the last policy committee meeting.
Does anybody want to read the definition of a fortress?
Hi, I'm Jeff Sinansky. I'm a president, parent, and two-step of the student school district. This is in our research for what should be in a district improvement plan. This is, I think, a useful definition. I think it's good for the record to be here of what a fortress school is defined as on a spectrum of how partnering goes between family and schools and parents. I think it speaks to the issues at hand. But in essence, a fortress school, which is on the wrong side of the spectrum, really, for what is a really engaged and a constructive program. Parents belong at home. This is what the schools believe. The parents belong at home, not at school. If students don't do well, it's because their families don't give them enough support. We're already doing all we can, the school's perspective. Our school is an oasis in a troubled community, and we want to keep it that way. So, it's a perspective. What do you want me to go in all of them?
Yeah, you got 3 minutes.
All right. In terms of answering the question of how family-friendly is your school, a fortress school, in terms of building relationships, the families do not bother the school staff. Minority families don't value education, in quotes. Parents need security clearance to come in. It is important to keep community influences out of the school. In terms of answering the question, how closely is your school's parent involvement program linked to student learning? Curriculum and standards are considered too complex for parents to understand. And a quote in this case, if parents want more information, they can ask for it. And another quote, we're teachers, not social workers. To answer the question, how well is your school bridging racial, class, and cultural differences? Addressing the differences, those parents need to learn English. We teach about our country, that's what those parents need to know. This neighborhood is going downhill. In answer to the question, how well does your school support parents as advocates? Parents don't come to conferences. Problems are dealt with by the professional staff, and teachers don't feel safe with parents. And finally, to answer the question, how well is your school sharing power and practicing democracy? Very important aspects. In terms of sharing power, the principal picks a small group of cooperative parents to help out. Families are afraid to complain, and there's concern that they might take it out on my kid. That's a concern. And community groups should mind their own business. They don't know about education. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Melissa Rutkowski. 4 children that were in the district, 1 still is. Today I received a letter from the U.S. Department of Education Office for Civil Rights. And it states on August 11, 2015, the U.S. Department of Education, New York Office for Civil Rights, received the above referenced complaint you filed against Beacon City School District. You allege that the district failed to adopt and publish grievance procedures providing for the prompt and equitable resolution of complaints of discrimination filed by or on behalf of students. You also allege that the district failed to properly train its employee designated to respond to complaints of discrimination or harassment pursuant to Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972. OCR has determined that these allegations are appropriate for investigation. This is an example of how the actions or inactions of the superintendent has caused Beacon City School District to be investigated by the federal government. I think it's important for the public to know that in the superintendent's contract with the Board of Ed, there are two provisions for removal of the superintendent by the Board of Ed. The first is discharge for good and just cause. These types can get messy with litigation and expensive settlements, as we have seen with prior superintendents. There is a second, however, which is new to this contract, and it is no-fault termination. After July 1st, 2016, at the option of the Board of Ed, a no-fault termination procedure can be implemented by the Board of Ed. The no-fault termination procedure in the contract already spells out the terms of settlement. With this no-fault termination, the superintendent would receive half pay and benefits for a maximum of 6 months. For the current salary of $181,050, this would amount to a total of $45,263 plus benefits. Thank you.
Okay. Has everyone that wished to speak had that opportunity? Okay. Dr. Walkley?
Speaker 1, April Farley, talked about
albinism awareness.
Yes. And she read a proclamation. Susan Lutley talked about books. We already talked about books and the process for getting new books. The next speaker spoke about BOCES having professional development at no cost. We pay a fee to belong to certain programs within the BOCES. Some of the programs come at no additional cost, but there is a cost, and some programs we do pay additional monies for. She talked about a teaching position that was not replaced. I think what she's referring to is an English position where we had an oversubscription of teachers and therefore did not have to hire an additional teacher to fill in the classes.
I was told that there were 29 students in the class.
Let's remember, and we'll discuss this later again, but when she's answering questions, it's not an opportunity to rephrase your question or to ask another. But we will talk about that later in the meeting. Thank you.
The next speaker asked about the APPR plan and what was in place and rubrics for Heidi bands. So we've been working with a group of administrators and teachers chosen by their unions to participate in the planning for the APPR. The rubrics for the Heidi band in the new 3012D are actually prescribed by the state. In the previous APPR, teachers and administrators had an opportunity to negotiate the Heidi bands, but now the state has taken away that ability to negotiate and has prescribed a band for a Heidi, with the exception of one band where a choice is given within ranges, and we have to agree upon or negotiate those bands. So we've already agreed to that. We gave the most flexibility that we could based upon the choices that we had. And we have not completed the APPR process yet, but we are in the process, and we have made some major decisions. The SLOs for teachers, the teachers have not started SLOs, and again, the state has changed the system for doing SLOs. Some of the choices are different. Every teacher now will have a backup SLO, which was not required in the past. And that's primarily due to some school districts that enough students refused to take the test so that there was not enough students to get a score. So now the state has put in a new requirement that every teacher will have a backup SLO, and therefore every teacher will receive a score even if they don't have enough students. There is a methodology for that prescribed by the state. AIS. A number of years ago, there was a plan for AIS that had not been updated. So when I came to the district as an assistant superintendent, the plan was updated. There are plans for AIS. And I can't really speak to what happened in the past plan about AIS being after-school test prep. But that's not what AIS is today. For those of you that are teachers, you know that AIS is linked to, I'm going to use a little alphabet soup here. AIS stands for Academic Intervention Services. And they are linked to something called Response to Intervention. Response to Intervention says that we are to service the vast majority of our students in the general education classes. And we have levels of interventions that we try with students when they may begin to struggle in the school or they're still a developing student. So those level one interventions are interventions that happen in the classroom, and they require using different strategies. Sometimes teachers have a huge box of strategies that they can reach in and pull out new strategies to try, and sometimes teachers have tried a lot of strategies and they need to know, are there any others that I can try? So Tier 1 strategies are generally tried in the classroom. If they are not successful, then you go to a Tier 2 strategy that is sometimes delivered in the classroom, but sometimes it is also maybe a pull-out service or a push-in service for students. And then Tier 3 interventions are also maybe pull-out, maybe a special programming, might be an interim placement to get students back up to speed in their classrooms. All of those Tier 1, 2, and 3 are forms of AIS. In addition to that, we have AIS periods scheduled during the day with teachers, and they are counted as one of their 5 teaching periods. There may be, and we do have other programs that come under the umbrella of AIS, but they don't have the title AIS. So, for example, our Bridge program is an example of an AIS service. So we have services that are delivered during the school day. In addition to that, we may have extra after-school help, etc., but our AIS services are delivered during the day.
Dr. Work, were you speaking specifically about the secondary, or were you combining the elementary and secondary there?
Some of the programs I mentioned are at the secondary level. At the elementary level, we have remedial services that are delivered to the student, which also come through the big umbrella of academic intervention services. We have reading services, we have math services, and we have teachers that also do Tier 1, Tier 2 supports in the classroom that are also considered AIS services.
Did you have another question to that?
I'll wait until board comments and I'll wait for them to wait for their answers.
I do have a TOSA brochure here tonight, and that's going to be part of my report, so I'm just going to hold it until then. And I'll answer those questions by using the brochure. There's nothing on the website because we are in the process of training our new teacher for our STEM program, which is called Engineering by Design. the new pilot program at the 6th grade. Anne-Marie, would you like to update on the HR position?
Yes, currently the HR position is reposted, so that's what you saw on the OLAS website, and we are gaining resumes and applications. I believe through the end of this week, if not next week. I don't know the exact date. We will be re-interviewing for that position.
The half days, the state, they're not quite half days. They're called shortened days. If the proposal goes through this evening, there will be 3 shortened days on the calendar, and the state allows them so that you can count them. There are not less days. We are required to go 180 days for students, and the teachers go a few extra more days if you look on the calendar. And I don't have it in front of me, so I'm not going to quote the number of days.
Dr. Walkley?
Yes.
I think an important part of that as well is if you do the simple math, there's 182 student days, and someone brought up the snow days. So
Yes.
you subtract the 5 snow days to get 177 days. State allows districts to add back up to 4, and we have 3 superintendent conference days, so that gives us the 180 days where we're safe.
Thank you. And on the calendar that I showed, the give back days, if there is a need for that, if there's more than 5 snow days, then the give back days are listed on the bottom of that calendar, and that calendar is posted on the website. There was a question about contacting the board directly. Generally, the board functions as a total group, and just as an update, there is a process in place for timely notification to the board that we discussed today. There is not a policy on high-stakes testing along the lines of opting out. The information that was shared last year on test refusal and opting out is actually from state law and regulation. I have been working with the vice president of the BTA, and I believe I enjoy a good working relationship with her. And I believe that I will have to check with Teresa, but I believe we have scheduled a meeting with the new president. And so the intent, of course, is to work collaboratively. I am already and have been working collaboratively with the vice president.
And the next one was for me. Mrs. Springer asked if council has written a letter of apology. I can tell you that no, he has not. Your question about the board regularly evaluating the superintendent, yes. In fact, last year we did a mid-year evaluation due to the newness of the position. The evaluation is pretty comprehensive. I would say at least 20 pages long, evaluating every, and it can be found on the website of New York State School Superintendents. They have a draft of the evaluation form. I believe it can be Googled and found.
It's a template.
Yeah, it's a template, but you can see the questions that are involved in it, and it's very comprehensive. And then the question regarding public input on the evaluation, the evaluation tool that is used, which is agreed upon between the board and the superintendent, does not allow for public input on the evaluation. Right? The tool we use. Oh, and then I didn't write that part down. You had asked if I felt that the superintendent has behaved unethically, and I will tell you that I do not believe that the superintendent has acted unethically.
It wasn't just your opinion, it was just fact. I wasn't saying, did you feel, but has she?
Well, you posed the questions at the start of your 3 minutes to me.
That's true. You're right.
Okay. The full-time band teacher, what I talked about, I think if you go back and take a look, what we talked about is that we had retirements, and we were hoping to have a full-time band teacher. And what I did say is it might be a 2-year program. Those retirements were actually filled, those positions were actually filled by teachers as classes evolved in different schools. We ended up not having that extra position through a retirement. We actually filled that position. So we were not able to have the band teacher, the shared band teacher this year. There are plans in the DSIP for parent involvement, and I don't have the DSIP in front of me, but I do know that part of that plan for parent involvement does involve, at the district level, does involve some of the parent sessions that we are developing. In addition to that, there are forums that we just passed out, as well as parents becoming involved at the school level in many different ways. So I don't have the DSIP in front of me. I certainly can get that in front of me at another time, so I could speak to that. We talked about the calendar. We are a focus district because we either did not meet our targets, or we did not assess enough children, or we did not meet at the high school graduation rate. When the state first designed and labeled schools, focus districts, priority schools, priority districts, what they said is that they would not label any additional districts or schools with the focus title. They would label, if a school fell to that particular level, that they would label them LAP schools or local assistance plans. And that's partly because the state has limited resources to conduct the kinds of analysis that they do when they come and do a state visit, which is usually every other year with the focus or priority schools. It takes 2 years to get off a focus list, and in that 2-year period you have to meet targets, show certain progress, and you have to test a certain amount of students, and you have to meet graduation requirements, not only for your total population, but for your subgroups as well. And so there are subgroups this year, and let me explain that for this year's title of focus is based on the previous 2 years' data. So in 2014-15, we are looking at 13-14 and 12-13 data. So yes, you're correct that we did test enough students in those years and that there are subgroups. If you look back to the previous year or any year that we had a focus school or a local assistance plan school, you will see that those identified areas change, the subgroups change. And that's why I said you have to be very careful as you go through and trying to improve a district, because this particular year, all of our subgroups except 2 have met targets. So now not only do we have to keep working with all of the subgroups who made targets and the target got higher, we also have to make sure that the 2 subgroups also make their targets. And so far in our district, even though there are commonalities, if you look back, you'll see each year different subgroups did or did not make the targets. I will say that the
number of students you test do make a difference, because this, and you know what? Now I gotta go back. For this current year, we did not, in year 14-15, we did not assess 95% of our students. So that will be a factor in looking at whether we are a focus school or a focus district next year. It will affect us next year. It did not affect us this year because we're looking at 2 previous years of data where we did assess enough students. And on another day, I think it might be helpful if I brought and talked about the effect of not assessing enough students for the 3012D APPR. And you're also correct in general in the high school. Assessing enough students generally is not an issue because students generally take the Regents exam. It is the problem that exists with assessing enough students generally does fall to grades 3 through 8 and more so at the middle school. There was a sentence or two there, I think, that Mrs. Rutusky left out.
Well, we skipped a couple people.
Well, I didn't find a question. With some of the other people.
I want to talk a bit to Mrs. Haynes. Okay. So certainly, parents need the opportunity to speak. But something that I want to make very clear, when an incident happens with a child in our buildings, the board does not ever have that child's name. So if something happens with somebody's child in one of the buildings, we get a student number. So the board is not aware. If a parent comes to the podium and then wants to speak about their student, they're enlightening us to who that child is, and their privacy is then gone. Certainly, parents need the opportunity to speak and to be heard. But in this venue, I don't know that that's quite the place. We talked about ways of addressing the board. Certainly, it's best to go through Kelly to get messages to the board. We've talked about how we're going to put a process in place so that messages are immediately sent to the board, not waiting until the next meeting or to be put, in our board packet prior to, whether it be a committee meeting or the actual meeting. But I want everybody to understand when something happens with a child or something happens with an educator, this Board of Education does not have a person's name at any time. They're entitled to their privacy, and I will, in my position here, protect each child and each employee's privacy, if at all possible.
There was another sentence that says something like this, because I don't have it in front of me. It said that the complaint has been taken, the complaint is open, but that receiving this letter is not an indication of guilt. Anyone can take a complaint and there's many areas where we can complain, just like anyone can take a lawsuit. Whether there is something behind the lawsuit or not behind the lawsuit, everybody has a right to take a lawsuit at any time. And the same with complaints with schools. And so there will be an investigation that will be conducted, and then a decision will be made based upon that investigation. I believe that's all the questions. For my report, just an update on the Grow Your Own program. We have a meeting coming up with Mr. Ed Sullivan and the fellow at Marist College. Ms. Ashley Jackson is going to be our representative from the high school, and Mrs. Kellogg and myself will be meeting with Mr. Ed Sullivan coming up soon. My guess is that other board members would like to talk about Homecoming, the Hall of Fame, and Spirit of Bacon Day, yes. So I will let them discuss that, but it was a great weekend for those events. Also, we had great open houses, Meet the Teacher Night. And I also want to report upon the Directors Symposium that was held last weekend. Mr. P.J. Devine invited all the drama directors from about 5 counties, and about 40 directors came to the high school on a Saturday. There were students here. He invited vendors that are related to drama, and they had breakout sessions of interest for the directors of drama. They had lots and lots of information here. It was a wonderful day. On top of that, one of the biggest reasons to bring all the people together is that, as you know, when school districts put on a play, we buy a lot of materials, we make sets, we might borrow sets from other schools, etc. And the idea was to form a network of directors so that we could share materials that we have, share sets, etc. I was there for part of the day, and people seemed very excited, and I think that they're looking forward to working together in a much bigger way. So that was a great day. That many thanks to Mr. Devine for putting that together. I also attended the Health and Wellness Committee meeting, and wanted to thank them again for their good work and the time that they put in to developing information that will be used in our regulation for the health and wellness policy. And we talked about what's their next step and what did they see their role as. And I see them as champions for our district, and what I mean by that is they are the people who are going to keep health and wellness in front of us and keep it in the forefront of our decision making. They are also wanting to work on activities that are district-wide activities or special school activities that involve health and wellness, and so you'll be hearing more, I think, in the schools about activities. One of the activities they talked about is an event coming up, and right now I know Sargent School is participating, and I believe Forrestal is participating in the Walk to School Day, which is on October 7th. And we'll see if other schools are going to join in the fun of that particular day, where the bus lets the students off a little bit before school so they have the opportunity to walk, enjoy the fresh air, and get a little exercise as well. I wanted to share this brochure. Keep going. I don't want to read all this information to you because I know you can take a look at it yourself, but I'd like to address a few things from the brochure. Just as I was explaining earlier, AIS is Academic Intervention Services is a big umbrella, and there are many programs that come under AIS. The same is true for instructional support. There are many activities that we do throughout the year that come under the title of instructional support. The purpose of instructional support is to increase our capacity to meet the needs of all of our students. And in many districts, they have a version of an instructional support teacher, but they call them instructional coaches. In other districts, they're called, they might be called TOSAs, they might be called instructional support teachers. There's many names for the teachers who fall in this category, but they all have very similar goals in mind. And one of the biggest goals in mind is to raise the achievement of larger numbers of students by classrooms. And how does that happen? It happens because one of the things that instructional support teachers can do, just like instructional coaches in other school districts do, is they can help to assess students. Students who are still developing in the classroom and may need some assistance. And what is it what is the key that unlocks learning for that particular student? They are learning and have learned about a particular process called curriculum-based assessment, which is a quick assessment sitting with a student with the classroom materials that are used on a day-to-day basis, and finding out through having the student read the materials, asking questions of the student, comprehension questions, what is it that the student already knows and what can they do? And then determining what are the requirements of this particular grade level. So it's a collaborative approach with classroom teachers to say, what are the requirements? And then what is the gap between what the student already knows and can do and what they need to be able to know and do. And they're then designing strategies to help close the gap. They are teachers, they are simply teachers who have received additional training that other teachers haven't received, and they are turnkeying that training across the district. It is a form of professional development. They also have learned a process called root cause analysis that gets to the bottom of a problem. If you've ever problem solved with a group of people and you had a great idea and you applied it, but then it didn't really solve the problem. It helped a little bit, but it didn't really solve the problem. That's probably because you were not at a root cause. And so we can increase our efficiency of those tier 1, 2, and 3 level interventions that I talked about earlier by using a problem-solving process that gets to the root cause. The other idea behind instructional support, just like instructional coaches, English language arts coaches, math coaches, is that when a developing student begins to need help in the classroom, when they first need help, that's the time that we can invite an instructional support teacher to help problem solve strategies that will work for that student. Once they find strategies that work for the student, then they go back and teach that strategy to the teacher. If the teacher would like, they can model the strategy in the classroom with that teacher's students. They can co-teach together with the teacher until they're comfortable using that strategy, or they can, if the teacher would like, they can watch and give feedback. But once that strategy is learned by the teacher, that's a strategy that will work for any learner, not just developing students, but all students. And that's the way that the system begins to raise achievement for larger numbers of students, because we are working one-on-one with students, but then that strategy is then generalized for all students. If you open and look throughout the folder here, you will find that there are some principles in which the program is built upon. There is a discussion on a list of items that instructional support teachers can do collectively, although not every instructional support teacher does every option listed here. For example, there is only one of our instructional support teachers right now who is chairing CPSE meetings and CSE meetings. You can also see the instructional support teacher's role and the role of the classroom teacher. And on the back are the metrics that somebody was asking for. What is it that we're going to count or take a look at? We're going to look at the number of requests for support, the number of students served, the area of concern that was addressed, the areas that were improved in the classroom by teacher report, the number of curriculum-based assessments performed, the number of staff contacts, the number of student in-class observations, the number of modeling in-class supports, the number and type of impact. And when I say type, there's a number of different types of impact that may happen. It might be an impact on student behavior. It might be an impact on student learning. And there are other impacts, and the number and type of improvement as reported by the teacher. We are trying to impact student self-confidence as a learner, student achievement, teacher practice, and the ability to learn. That's a quick overview, and there's lots more information in there for you to take a look at. And there's one more item. There's an invitation to the board, a nice invitation. There is a superintendent board joint dinner that is held every year at the Doubletree in Tarrytown on Thursday, November 12th from 6:30 to 9:30. Professor Peter Johnson will be the keynote speaker, and he will be discussing the topic of opening minds, how language affects children's learning. And so if you're interested in attending, if you would please let Kelly know. And
The 12th.
the 12th of November from 6:30 to 9:30.
Dr. Walkley, are you taking questions on the brochure for the TOSAs, or?
Sure.
So for the TOSAs, can you give us an update on how it's been going so far? We're 4 weeks into the school year. Have teachers been requesting? I don't see a process for teachers to request the TOSAs, so how do they go about doing that?
Well, they can request simply by asking. And so each of our TOSAs are keeping a daily log. And
Who do they ask? So is it the administrator, or are they contacting the TOSA directly?
no, they contact TOSAs directly, and part of their job is, as you see on the front page, is to match the request for support to the identified resource. So they can ask any instructional support teacher, and it may not be that particular instructional support teacher that provides the service, but they will match to who is the appropriate person.
And where you say understand the 3012D regulation, that's the APPR, correct?
That is correct.
So why is the TOSA doing that? And shouldn't the union be making their unit members knowledgeable about the APPR process?
Well, these are all teachers, so they are part of the union.
I understand that, but it seems like one person is responsible for the understanding the 3012D regulation.
What makes you think it's one person?
Well, it's listed underneath the TOSA responsibility.
Yes.
So what are they going to be doing with that?
Well, like the teachers on the committee, which actually was another question. The teachers on the committee were selected by the union, and so there are a number of teachers, and off the top of my head I cannot tell you. I think maybe about 6, but don't quote me on that. And administrators as well. There's and teachers and administrators, as the new president is coming in, as they're thinking about the APPR, different teachers come on different days. So we have a larger number, but I would have to look at the list. So why do they need to know about the APPR? Because the APPR is quite complex, as you know. And there is a lot of research that needs to be done. As a matter of fact, as we were in the meeting just the other day, one of the teachers did contact the state, or we contacted both the state and NYSED to get some information about SLOs, the student learning objectives that we were talking about. So it's a collaborative approach, and we're all learning together. Our principals and our teachers have a lot to learn. And so it's good that we have people who can invest themselves in learning that, and the union is learning it along with all of the rest of us. Unions, because it's both the administrators union and the teachers union.
I think you misunderstood my question. I wasn't asking why we have someone. It seems like we're using district resources to pay someone as a TOSA to be responsible to make the teachers knowledgeable about what the APPR is.
Well, that's to our advantage.
But and my question is, isn't that the union's role to make their unit members knowledgeable about the APPR process?
Well, not according to the state.
I understand.
According to the state, I am required to provide training for teachers. I don't know if you know that, but every district is required to provide training for teachers. And as a matter of fact, they want that to begin immediately. And so that is one of the requirements of the regulation and the law.
No, I understand it. So you mentioned SLOs, and from my understanding of the new APPR, the 3012D, is that the superintendent and or his or her designee will be developing the SLOs. Are you working in conjunction with the teachers to develop the backup SLOs, or are you, like, because superintendents could just develop a SLO that they feel fit and not collaborate with the teachers on that SLO? Has there been a process to develop the backup SLOs for the teachers?
We have not started any process because our plan is not yet approved. So until the plan is approved, we will not begin that process. Currently, just like every other district, we are under the regulation of the 3012C, and that's how every district is starting this year. We do have to submit our plans, and our plans do have to be approved before that we can begin to use them.
Okay, do we have board comments tonight?
Yes.
Yeah, they said it's Spirit Beacon Day that I should go first.
Well, he's a gentleman and ladies go first.
So first I wanted to give an update. We had a policy committee meeting last week. So there's some information. Kelly actually put me in touch with a resource through the New York State School Boards Association. As people know, I've said this at previous meetings, we're subscribing to the policy service that New York State School Boards provides, so they help us update our policy book, which happens hopefully on a 3-year cycle. And I had shared that we had gotten behind in past years, and under Dr. Walkley's guidance, we have restarted our policy committee, and we're trying to get through some of those policies and get that 3-year cycle of reviewing our policy book in place. The representative from New York State School Boards told me about something that we were not aware of, which is that they will actually come and work with us 3 times during the course of the year of our membership, and if we choose to renew, they'll come again. So we have set up, we're in the process of setting up a meeting for Dr. Walkley and myself to take a look at all the policies we have to review and prioritize them. And you know, it's difficult at the policy meetings because sometimes there are policies that require a lot of discussion and there are others that really don't require much at all. So we're going to try to balance those so that we have meetings where there may be some we can look at more quickly. The other thing that we talked about a little bit was the storage of our policies. Currently our policies are stored on our district website in a very massive single document, and as they've been updated, they're being stored individually. And as we go forward, there are 2 different services that hopefully we can take a look at, and I think as a board we would have to talk about the financial implications of those. One of them is called e-policy, and that allows us to simply send our policies that have been updated back to this company, and they will organize them online for us. The other option is going through Board Docs. So we have a LT, light version or whatever, of Board Docs, and so if we wanted to store our policies there, we need to upgrade to Board Docs Pro. So I think we need some more information about how much those things cost, and also once you put your policies there, then they're there. And if that's where we choose to put them, we need to make sure we can kind of maintain that. We discussed 3 policies at the meeting on the 21st. The first policy we discussed was child abuse in a domestic setting, 5460. These policies are available on the website if people want to take a look. There was a small change to this policy based on a change in state law where now coaches, whether they are full-time employees of the district, if they are a paid coach, they are now mandated to report under this law that went into effect, Mike tells us, on July 1st. So we updated our policy to reflect that, and we discussed how Dr. Walkley and Mr. Nemechek are going to make sure that all the coaches have had the appropriate trainings and all those sorts of things.
I have a question to that. Mike, what's the policy on volunteer coaches? If they're board approved, they're not receiving a salary, but they're a volunteer coach that may perhaps ride on the bus with students.
the policy with respect to whether they're mandated reporters or they're not. The statute changed, making only compensated coaches mandated reporters. There's nothing to stop the district from adopting a policy that would require these individuals who are not mandated reporters, to the extent they come into possession of information that would require, they would be required to report if they were mandated reporters, to report that to the building principal.
Okay.
So the statute says in order to be a mandated reporter, and if you're a coach, you need to be compensated.
Okay.
And we had asked actually a similar question at the policy meeting. I had asked if, for example, if we had a stipended position that was not accepted by a member of the teachers union that then went out to a community member, would that person become a mandated reporter? So and Mike had said no, that the law only stated that it was coaches. It was only coaches.
So wait. So coaches we have coaches that are not employees of the district that are solely compensated to be a coach.
They're paid. They're now mandated reporters.
They're now mandated reporters.
Right. Okay. The way you said it just then.
Well, because I asked, what about another position that was accepted by someone who wasn't a district employee? For example, a chess club.
Okay.
And no, they would not be.
Okay.
But we did ask that. The next policy we talked about was policy 1400, the policy on complaints. So people, I believe, have that policy and have looked at it. There were a few things that we discussed and we adjusted on that policy. Minor, there's a chain of command in the complaint process, and there's also an understanding that when a complaint is submitted to the Board of Education, that the Board of Education may not be the only person who might respond to that complaint. So the example was brought up, if there was an issue with busing, perhaps the board would hear of the issue through the complaint and then forward that to the transportation department, who would then follow up. We also talked about the process, which would be in a regulation, not as part of the policy, to make sure that people who are submitting complaints are aware that their complaints have been received and have been sent along to the Board of Education, who then, may take on that complaint on their own or may pass it to a more appropriate person. The other piece that we clarified was that anonymous complaints would not be accepted, because the whole point of the complaint policy is that the complaint is accepted, it's reviewed, and then it's responded to. A complaint that's anonymous, there's really obviously no way to respond, so that wouldn't be necessarily a complaint that we could accept under this policy. The last policy we reviewed was policy 1230, the policy on public comment. This is a policy that we had started reviewing at our meeting in August, and we were not able to finish that discussion. There were some areas where we didn't come to wording that we had all agreed upon. One of the sections, and I'm going to pull it up here, had to do with how we would be handling discussing particular individuals. I think people remember we talked about this before, so we didn't want to ban comments that were positive, where people were coming and saying, I'm really happy with this particular program. And we also wanted people to be able to express being unhappy with a particular situation. However, as you mentioned before, we need to, under our policy, protect the private information, whether it's related to personnel matters or individual students. And then we also added a phrase in the policy where we're specifying that personal attacks was how we worded that. So that would allow for a discussion of something that was general or related to curriculum or related to a specific situation in a school where you wanted to just lodge a general complaint, and when it kind of got to the personal level, that was where it would be stopped. The other piece we reviewed was the section about public comment and responses to questions asked by individuals who are coming to the board meeting. So I'm trying to find the section because I wanted to read it, but generally what it does is the policy as it is written now says that at the end of all public comment after the 60-minute time period, the superintendent and board president may choose to respond to some or all of the questions. They may choose to put those off to another meeting, or they may choose to not respond. There was a very robust discussion, and the feeling of the committee was that we wanted to change the wording of the policy to state that the questions could be answered at any time. So at any time during the public comment, when a question came up that could be answered, that it would allow for that question to be answered at that time. So all of the people in attendance at the meeting, including Dr. Walkley, we discussed this, and this was the recommendation that our committee is now making to the board. So as everybody knows, the way it works is the policy committee reviews the policy. We express our opinions and our thoughts, and we listen to input that we've heard, and we make a recommendation. Then that's brought to the board. It's read 2 times at board meetings where community members or board members can express concerns, questions, thoughts, and then at the second read, the policy is voted on by the board. So that's where we are at this point with regard to the policy committee. We will meet again on October 20th at 7 p.m. I believe that's a Tuesday. Is that possible? I think it's a Tuesday. And we will meet in the board office, so we do appreciate anyone who would like to attend. It's a little different from a board meeting. There isn't always time. Rarely lately have we had time for public comment because we've had a lot of discussion going on. So that's all I have to say about policy committee. So for my public comments, I just wanted to say to Mrs. Rumley, thank you for the idea of starting support groups for other parents of students with disabilities. I think that's a great idea. And then, so I've been talking lately about student board members and about a forum and about a meet and greet and all these sorts of things. So I had a different idea now. So here's my idea, my proposal or suggestion that the board start a committee called the Public Relations Committee, and we can change the name. And the committee would need a charter and a plan and people to participate. But the function would be to continue to find ways to improve communication between the board and the district, the board and the community, and continue a lot of these great things that have been started now with regard to communication. And I think the student board member and the talking about those sorts of ideas, talking about the website, talking about something else I was going to say with regards to that, talking about forums and meet and greets and those sorts of things. So sort of under the same way that a policy committee would meet, a group of people, 3 people could meet monthly. I would imagine this type of committee would look for more public comment than other types of committees. That would be the point of the committee. Even maybe to have someone, sort of like a citizens advisory kind of a panel who could, be a set group that would attend, wouldn't be part of the committee, but could give feedback. And then that committee, just like any other committee, would return to the board and give their thoughts and ideas for the board to either choose to move forward with or not. So that's all I had to say. People have additional thoughts. Okay.
Done?
I think so.
All right. So I just wanted to comment on Christine's comments about the Public Relations Committee. I think it's a great idea. As you know, one of my first things that I brought up was to have a student board member when it was like one of the first 2 months that I was on here. I've seen it in other districts, and I think it's a great idea. And any way to facilitate more communication with the public is always welcome in my eyes, to be transparent as possible. My next comment goes from, it's a question I developed when a parent was asking about AIS. And Dr. Walkley, you were giving descriptions about the AIS in schools. So my question is say there's a hypothetical student that has a 1 on the ELA tests, and what services are they getting during the day to help increase their ELA performance?
So I think that depends upon the school. Depends on the school level. There are guidelines that are set by the state about who needs to receive AIS services. But again, that student may be a student that goes to a committee of teachers, psychologists, etc., who they lay out Tier 1 supports for that particular student, which are supports that can be delivered directly in the classroom. There's a lot of different ways it could go. It just depends on what the score was, and more importantly than the score on the state test, more importantly is how is the student doing in the classroom. That's what we really want to focus on, because the state test is a state test. It's a one-shot deal. Maybe the student didn't feel well that day.
So I know that some parents receive letters for students to participate in the math and ELA, IPRs or IRPs for after school. How are the students identified for that program?
They are identified by a process set by the principal in the school.
Okay, so it's just a sole school process from the principal. So if a student is identified, and let's say they go to, I don't know, what do you call your AIS teams? Do you call it like SIT teams, or do you call it RTI, or do you call them RTI committee meetings, or?
I think each building may have a different name.
So let's say they go to that committee and it's deemed that the student needs more help than a Tier 1 or a Tier 2 intervention. What are some Tier 2 interventions or Tier 3 interventions? I know that each elementary school has a reading specialist, and you mentioned remedial classes. What are the other remedial classes besides the reading specialists that will work with 2 or 3 students at a time? What other interventions do we have for that?
Well, one of the ways that the interventions change is the amount of time and intensity. So we have some students who receive reading services, maybe, I'll make it up, maybe 1 day a week, 30 minutes, or twice a week, 30 minutes each time. And then there are other students that may get 3 days a week, 30 minutes. So you can increase the time and intensity of services that already exist to assist students.
So one of the issues that I'm having is I know that there are students that are not performing well in classrooms and are not performing well in state tests, but yet there's not enough slots for the reading interventions that may be happening. How would we go about, and how would the school handle that?
What evidence do you have? Because I'd like to see that evidence.
Sure, I'm using a hypothetical student here, so
Well, you said you knew it.
through the hypothetical student.
Okay. So I don't know that exists. If there are students that need services, then we take a look at what services are available that we can provide in the school.
Okay. So then the other point, I'm done with the AIS. Thank you very much. I think you answered most of it. For the Melissa, you said that we did an evaluation, but that was prior to the appointment of permanent superintendent. Do we have to do another one? She was still the interim superintendent at that time.
We have another one to do.
Okay. And then my third comment goes to the public comment, and it seems like there's an inconsistency on the implementation of the policy. And let's look at 1230. There were some times where it seems like sometimes we're following the policy and it's very quick, and then other times it's not followed as quick. And I'll give specific examples since I've been on the board. There was one time where Mrs. Atwell was addressing the public, and I tried to intervene, and you allowed it to go on. So that was the implementation of the policy. The only thing that Mr. Atwell said tonight was that there was a meeting on his son. He didn't go into specifics, and yet it was shut down immediately.
He was referencing his son. You're talking about...
But the parent referenced the book that her daughter had to buy for the AP history. I mean, and that's where we need the consistency of the implementation.
You're right.
So she named the teacher, and she named her daughter as buying and having the ability to buy, which is kind of personal about their financials, and allowed that to go on. But yet, when it came to other members, it wasn't. Then there are some people that are allowed to ask questions after the fact, and I think we need to...
That's what we're going to discuss when we get to that part of the meeting.
Okay.
Because I agree with you.
And it just seems like if we're going to take a hard stance with one, we got to take it with everyone. If we're not going to take a hard stance and we're going to allow people to come up twice, then we have to. Then why have the policy or change the policy and stuff? And it just seems like, and it's not an attack on you, Melissa. I know it's tough to sit in that chair and bang that gavel. I understand it, but I think we need to do better as being more consistent with it. And it seems like I know Bobby, and I know that he's not an aggressive person. So when you tell him to stop, he's going to stop. Whereas I know other people, when you tell them they're going to stop, they're not going to stop.
Do we have any other comments today?
The Dutchess County School Board Association meeting will be this Thursday. The main topic will be the resolutions that will be put forward at the state convention for school boards. So anybody would like to attend with me, I'm always happy to have company on the way up there. So just let me know if you would like to attend. It's at 7 o'clock up at the BOCES office at Salt Point Turnpike.
All right, well, I want to keep my comments tonight on the positive. How about this weekend, right? How about to be a part of Beacon this weekend? Homecoming, to see our boys win the homecoming game was certainly something to cheer about. Our inductees into the Hall of Fame, how crazy was it that I was in the gym when one of those inductees scored her 1,000 points. It's exciting to be a part of that and to see, how many of them are still here in Beacon. I was disappointed not to see Ari Dixon there because, he was nominated as a track athlete from our schools who did amazing things, but he still comes back. And I've never seen him, but he still comes back and he helps our athletes, as all the other nominees who are even teachers in our buildings and around our community. What a great thing to have. And it was exciting. It was exciting to be a part of that and to be there to share in the excitement with them. And then Spirit of Beacon Day. Did Mr. Archer just walk out? Wasn't it Sargent that won the float?
That was awesome.
Did he have the twirling gem?
Yeah.
That was the next float.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
I'm a Glenham mom, so of course I'm always, intent on the Glenham float. But that gem certainly had people looking, right? That gem was circling there.
The designers here.
You were the designer?
No, I did not design
You
the
didn't
gem.
design it?
I did apply lots of glitter to it.
Well, whoever came up with it, what a great job, right? And how exciting for the kids. I'm always disappointed with our homecoming that, I grew up in a small town and we made these great floats. Each class had a float and, it was like this big to-do. And we don't do any of that anymore. But Spirit of Beacon Day gives me that feeling again, right? The kids and the parents come together. I mean, how much glitter did you wash off your kid? So, I don't know. It was great to see all of Beacon in the streets yesterday, right? And celebrating together and enjoying each other and looking around to see why we came here initially. I'm not a Beaconite. I came here with a purpose. I wanted my children to go in this community, to grow in this community because I valued what this community had to offer. And at Spirit of Beacon Day, you saw that, right? You saw everybody coming together, and it was a great event. So between homecoming on Saturday and Spirit of Beacon Day on Sunday, I was pretty tired going to work this morning, but I felt renewed because I saw such great things and was a part of great things. So we'll leave it at that. Okay. May I have a motion for the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda items 10.02 through 10.11.
Second. Comments or questions?
Yes. I would like to pull 10.08.
And I would like to pull 10.09. Motion to appoint agenda items 10.02 through 10.11 minus 10.08 and 10.09.
Okay, I'm going to say a little different, but I'll try.
All right.
Motion to approve consent agenda items 10.02 through 10.11, except for 10.08 and 10.09.
Second. Comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. May I have a motion for item 10.08?
Motion to approve item 10.08.
Second.
Comments or questions?
Yes. So I see that this is a consulting agreement for ESL, and I know that there's a TOSA that is working specifically with ESL. So I was wondering, how does this tie into the work that the TOSA is doing, and is it different, or is it PD for that TOSA, or how is it different, and how are they going to work together?
I can speak to that, Anthony. Mr. Ricketts has been working in the district. I believe this will be his third year working with us. He had started with us a couple of years ago through the Arbor, and he provides instructional strategies for the teachers in an embedded professional development way. When he comes in, he works with teachers, with the principals through meetings or through into the classrooms, and to provide strategies that support students that are English as new language students, but also strategies that would work for other students as well. The teachers really enjoyed working with him, continue to enjoy working with Mr. Ricketts. They feel that his strategies are helpful to them, and they requested that we continue to use his services. Mr. Archer is working with us as the Title III co-coordinator, and his funding for him would be paid under Title III funds. So we do have the money in the grant to support this, and we felt like we wanted to continue the continuity. That's not to say that the TOSA or the instructional support specialist that does that helps and support ESL couldn't also support the teachers, and certainly does in a different way. He will only be here. He has, I believe, it's 5 days per school, basically.
Yeah, that's what's alarming to me. It's 25 days at $800, so that's $20,000 that we're paying for a consultant to come in, which ATOSA is doing a similar task as this consultant is doing. I know that there's constraints with the Title III and how we could spend it and so forth, but there are other ways to spend it, maybe in literature and with reading and so forth. And it just seems like if we hired someone full-time to go over Part 150, the new Part 154 regulations, and they're working on the co-teaching with the L students, and they're going to be doing this, and now we're spending another $20,000 out of grant funds. And I was just wondering how it tied in, and if it's something different than what the TOSA is doing. But if it's something that the TOSA has been doing, we know that they received PD, and they're supposedly highly trained in this area. How it's different and what this consultant can offer that TOSA can.
There are different bodies of knowledge. So Mr. Ricketts, one of the body of knowledge that he is well versed in is a program called SIOP training, which he brings specific strategies from SIOP. He also helps us. He also is part of the team that will do the district analysis for the SEPs and DSIPs this year. He is our ESL person that works with us. There are other members from the Arborn that sometimes come and work with us as well, but he plays a very specific role in helping us do the in-district analysis.
Can Beacon become part of the Title III consortium that is in the area? Like, I know smaller districts are part of the Title III consortium, which would offer the same type of support that it seems like the consultant is doing, and it's to help out with the Part 154 regulations and so forth. I don't know.
You're talking about the Arborn.
I believe so.
Okay, so we are a member of the Arborn, and there is a limit to what support that they can offer districts. They themselves work off a grant, and they are spread across so many districts that the time and support that they can give us is much less.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. May I have a motion for item 10.09?
Motion to approve item 10.09.
Second.
Comments or questions? All right, well, I had questions. I have multiple questions. I think, and Anthony, you pointed out it very well. Certainly I was stuck at work and not able to make the last policy committee meeting, but at the meeting prior, we did begin discussion of this policy. And my concern was, just as you said, every person that references a child, their child, or a child that we can figure out who they are, I'm to stop them. And, then we had the question regarding, if somebody wants to support their teacher or shout out something good about a student, they're talking about a student, do I have to stop them as well? But then, my other concern has to do with the answering to questions. And I know that that's something that everyone would like to see. They'd like to see their question answered after it's asked. But tonight was a great example of something that would still be against the policy. So tonight, Ms. Lutley asked the question about the textbooks, and you answered her question, and then she knew that Anne Marie didn't quite understand her question, so she offered an explanation. That explanation, based on the policy, I'd be banging the gavel. Is that what we want? Is that what the board wants? Is that what the public wants? There's many times where a question...
I don't understand what...
Because the way the policy is intended and the way we've talked about it repeatedly, I get looks from the board many times when somebody shouts out from the public that I need to rein that in, that that's not appropriate and I need to rein it in. But I think many times those simple clarifications might be easier. I don't know, but I think this policy is incredibly important, specifically at this time, and I think it needs additional fleshing out to ensure that we have addressed every piece of the puzzle necessary so that whether it's me or someone else sitting in this chair can manage that policy during the public comment section.
So, and I just want to go back to tonight just because it's fresh in everyone's mind. So I guess everyone was done signing up, and then you usually ask, and this is what I was referencing before when you usually ask, are there any other comments? And so then you say, if no one came up, let's say, then Dr. Walkley would answer all the questions.
Right.
So I thought that you were implementing the policy as it is read on tonight as 1009 as to, okay, there was a question, now Dr. Walkley chose to answer that question now before going through all of the questions because it wasn't adopted yet. So that was what I was referencing tonight, was it seemed like it was different that she started to answer the questions before you asked were there any other comments or any other public comments.
And I understood that was your
There's nothing
concern.
in the policy that permits that or would not permit that to happen right now, the current policy.
So then why are we looking at changing it to...
There was
to
no
add,
wording changed.
No, so if that's the case where you can answer any question after any question is posed and you don't have to wait, from my understanding from Ms. Galbo is that wording was changed in this policy here where that would allow it because it's not allowed now.
The policy as we have now states that at the end of the question and answer session, or the public comment session, that the superintendent and the board president may choose to respond to questions at that time. Now, if you're allowing an hour for public comment and everyone has 3 minutes, okay, and you're answering questions in that time, you're not waiting until the end of the hour. So the policy now states there will be an hour of public comment. After that will be the answers if they're going to be given. But the policy as proposed says that the questions may be answered at any time.
So that was the difference that I think I was referring to, was because I didn't think that Melissa usually offers, are there any other people that wanted to speak, but yet that wasn't offered, and then you started to answer the question.
I jumped the gun.
Right. I was about to make that announcement, and she said, let me get that one real quick.
But can I just say, I think what we're talking about right now is more about the implementation, not really the policy. So I think what we're supposed to be talking about is this is supposed to be the first read of the policy. So the policy implementation, or how we make the policy happen in the meeting, is separate from how the policy is written. So I think it's two separate things.
And what I would say, Christine, is I would agree that that wording needs to change to give the opportunity to answer the question right after, because there might be a yes or no question.
And it is. That's the recommendation from the policy committee.
And I think we were pretty clear, at least I felt I was, in the policy committee meeting, that as far as the back and forth and comments, that we were also still going to limit that, like calling out from the audience and such. I think that was part of the discussion that we had.
But the other piece is that it would help if a person came up to speak and the question was answered and you really weren't answering it and maybe they said, oh no, what I really meant was, then that could very easily, that's not a back and forth dialogue, that's not a calling out, that's clarifying of the question. That's a little bit different. And so if it's answered right away, then it takes that away. So then later when the person's sitting way back there, and then when someone's sitting way back there, then they don't have to yell out because they're right there. So I and I think that was the tone at the policy meeting was that, the hard part is the implementation of the policy.
I agree. I think the wording of it, changing it to give the opportunity to answer the question right after, so if there isn't clarity, then it could be responded to, and then the people aren't calling out, I think it's a great idea. Then it just goes into how we're going to implement it.
And then the other thing that came up at the meeting that I didn't share before, but I will now, I didn't leave it out on purpose, but, there is still will be the, 1 hour time allotted. And that will include answering the questions. And I did say this, if anybody, I think some people here were at the meeting, but now we're allowing a full hour for public comment, and then we do the questions after. And we don't always use the full hour, but like tonight we didn't. Sometimes we do. And so that would be, those answers would be interspersed, so that would reduce a little bit the amount of time. But I think people overall felt that the number of questions would be reduced if some of them were answered earlier. Then people maybe wouldn't get repeat questions and
well,
whatnot.
could that be that there's enough time slots in the book, so if it would be like they get their 3 minutes, so say that's the 60 minutes, and we would get everyone in the book, so it may not afford people opportunity if they didn't sign up, if it went through the hour.
And that's what it says. The policy says if at the end of the allotted time there is still time for public comment, people will be called who aren't on the list. And that part was not recommended to be changed.
But let's say that there were 20 people that signed up in the book. I'm assuming there's 20 spots. I haven't seen it. And Dr. Walkley answered some questions right after the comment. Those 20 people would still get to speak.
No, it's an hour. And so that was one of the things that I had said at the meeting. People needed to understand if you can't really, time while someone is speaking, and then when they stop, the hour can't really be tracked like that and have people.
But
pay
we would be able to
attention
track it because if there's 20 people and then there's 3 minutes per speaker, that's an hour of
But
comment.
again, that's implementation, and
That's
I think
if each
the
one
folks
uses all
we can
3
talk
minutes.
about that at another time.
But it couldn't be more. So if there's 20
Right.
people, it couldn't be more.
Anthony, can be the possibility that some people don't get the time to speak.
Well, that's what I'm trying to talk about, to say if there's 20 spots and they're all filled, then regardless of if the comment comes after the answer comes after the comment or not, those 20 people would get to speak, and the people that didn't sign the book wouldn't be afforded the opportunity to speak, because we know that whether they used 1.5 minutes or 3 minutes, we know that we're going to assume that they used the 3 minutes because there's 20 signatures in the book. So anybody that signed up would get that opportunity.
No, that's not what we're saying. We're saying we.
No, I'm asking if that would be.
Well, the way the policy is worded is that there will be an hour afforded for questions, and answers will be interspersed.
So could that be changed to say there would be an hour for the community members to comment? And then would that then allow for the comments to be an hour and not the responses not taking up that hour, because we would know because of the signatures in the book?
I mean, sure. I mean, the policy can say whatever the board wants it to say, but I think the message is that, if the policy is sent back to committee, then the policy committee can certainly review it with other input that people want to add. But tonight, this is the policy that we came up with, and so certainly that's why it's read twice, so that people can give their input, and if we feel like it needs to go back, and if the board as a whole feels like we need to make changes that, people are all agreeing on, then that's what happens. But this is at this point, I guess, Mike, the way it works is the policy that we are presenting is what is either voted on or not, or it's tabled or whatever the process is, but this is not where we would do the changing. It would go back to the committee.
Yes.
Okay.
And I just would like to say, I appreciate all the work the committee has done. The committee has discussed this policy on multiple occasions, and there's just so many pieces to it, and maybe I'm so sensitive to making sure that we truly flesh it out, because I have to manage the policy in this seat. But I think that we still have work to do on it. I just think that, especially with the concerns that we've brought today, that we need additional work.
I think Georgia had a comment, and then I have a comment.
Okay.
Did you still want to speak?
No, I mean, I think we have reviewed this policy a number of times, and in fact, we had just implemented it not even a year ago, the change in the policy. So us reviewing it again is giving us notice that, you know, we want to try to make some changes. I don't see where, I guess I'm having difficulty following some of your concerns, sorry, about how the public comment. I feel that sometimes waiting to the end, sometimes there's multiple questions from the community that are the same, and so answering maybe after the first one could help give someone else a response, and then they could either lessen, you know, their questions, or they've already heard their response. And so then that would afford more people to come up and speak.
But it can be worked the opposite way too. When we give the answer to that person, somebody else from the public come up with more questions about that one. It can be worked both ways.
I'm just worried. I mean, if we're waiting for, I mean, then we're saying, or if it's a long-winded response, then that's what we have to determine and wait at the end so more people could speak. I mean,
well, I think part of the policy also says that if it's something that's going to be an extended response, it can be, Dr. Walkley can state, this is a really big issue. I'm going to come to the next board meeting with information in my superintendent's report. Or like if it's AIS, let's do a workshop on this topic. A lot of people have questions. We're not going to go through all of them tonight, but I can. Or maybe it's something where she'll say, let's have a separate meeting. There are those situations where, you know, like an individual meeting is more appropriate. But that was the feeling that of the committee. And so this is the policy, again, that we're recommending. And if the board is going to vote or not vote, and then if it goes back to committee, we can re-review it. But I agree with Georgia. I feel like we've done a lot of work on this policy. And, you know, I don't know, you know, I mean, I think we could nitpick the policy for, you know, the next year and a half, and we probably still wouldn't all agree. So, and again, I agree with what Melissa and everyone was saying, and some of it is implementation, and I don't think you can write a policy based on, you know, whether it can or can't be implemented. Easily, I think we have to make the policy that we think is the best one for the situation, and then figure out how to implement it.
So this is just my 2 cents. So, I mean, even at this table, we still are not really clear how we would implement it, and given that 2 of the 4 committee members weren't there, and given that we still have a lot of questions about how this would work in practice, while I understand the policy itself and the implementation are separate, they are intertwined, and so I feel like we don't want to write something that we are not going to really be able to manage. And so for that, my suggestion would be to have the policy committee, because I was at the meeting, the first meeting, not the most recent one, but there were a lot of unanswered questions with regards to, while we want to respect the privacy of a student, we had a case where we just recognized 2 students today, and so, you know, how does that fit in?
Right.
So,
we also did amend that section. So I thought I said it, but maybe I didn't. There's a section where we talk about what you can and can't comment on, and so it talks about you can comment on any item on the agenda, any item pertaining to district business, so long as it does not include, Mike, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, so long as it does not include personnel matters, protected student information, or personal attacks on individuals. Does that sound right?
And I think that came from the Wapage's policy.
Yeah. We had a few other policies we were looking at, so.
Took their statement.
I'm sorry, what did you say, Georgia?
I said we kind of took that statement and revised it into what we had there.
And what did Anthony say with that face?
I didn't say
He
anything.
just was laughing.
No comment necessary.
I share your.
I like the changes. I think they're better than what we have now, but I still feel that we could wait all the time if we're worried about implementing. We're still not implementing the policy that as it's written now. So I think the changes are better just because, an example today, I look back at my notes after board comment, and one of the parents asked about, you know, could each board member give, I would have given my perspective on the TOSAs, but I forgot about it. So I think it's hard to keep track of the answers and so forth.
But I want to remind you that part of the policy says that you will address your comments to the board as a whole. So you really shouldn't even be individually acknowledging the president or anyone or asking individual questions. They're supposed to be to the board as a whole because the board functions as a whole. So that's another piece too. So I think that, again, the policy is not, in my opinion, the issue or what people have issue with. I think it has to do with implementation that we all have to work on as a group. And so I think in order to implement a policy, we need a policy. So that's the policy that, I think, I don't want to speak for Georgia, but Georgia and I and Bill sat in, again, as you said, Melissa was unable to attend, but we did have Bill sit in, so we had 3 board members on the committee, and that was the policy, again, that we came up with to share with the board. So
I just want to make it clear that I like the idea of answering the questions after they're asked. I like that idea because it is hard to remember, and you get kind of like jumbled when you're answering questions, whether it be you or whether it be me. It kind of gets lost. But I think that this policy is more than that. And that's the piece that I think that we need to work on.
Can you explain what you mean by that? Like what's missing? Because I like Georgia. I'm not.
I think there's.
Well, rather than try and hammer out all the changes now, if we have enough members that want to bring it back to committee, then the board members can give their comments, suggestions to the committee, and hash it out there.
So let me ask you a question then about how committees function. Mike, I don't know if this is the appropriate place to answer this question, but the board committee, is that how the committee works? How does the committee work? So the committee makes a recommendation to the full board, and then the board either votes yes or no on the policy that the committee has forwarded. My understanding is that if the board votes no, the policy automatically goes back to committee to be reviewed, or the old policy stays as is. But how does it work when the members of the committee had a meeting and the policy is recommended, and then do we then take the individual changes that the board members made and reconsider those when we sit at the policy committee meeting?
It's however the board decides it wants to handle it. The board can either accept the recommendations of the policy committee in their entirety and approve them. They can reject them in their entirety and disapprove them, or they can ask that the policy committee address certain portions of the proposed policy that they are not yet fully comfortable with, in which case it would go back to the committee and they would address those issues. Now, it doesn't mean that the policy committee is going to make any changes. They may say, all right, we've heard these concerns. We don't agree with them. We're making the recommendation to the board again, and then the board will have the same options available to it.
Okay.
I bet you would do that, Christine.
Never.
Okay. Any other questions? Comments? Okay, so we're voting to approve agenda item 10.09.
Which is
just
to clarify, it's the first reading.
The first reading.
Of the policy.
Right,
Yes,
but
first
it's,
read.
okay, the first read of the policy. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
So we have a roll call then?
Roll call?
Mrs. Angelek Everett.
Opposed.
Mrs. Gadsden is excused. Mrs. Galbo.
Yes.
Mr. Garnett.
Opposed.
Mr. Munoz.
Opposed.
Ms. Patchen.
Yes.
Mr. White.
Yes.
Mr. Zoff.
Yes.
Mrs. Thompson.
Opposed.
Tie.
So what does that mean?
It fails. You need
Five.
You need
Five.
five.
Back to the drawing board.
Okay.
And that'll be
So,
on the 20th.
So can I just ask
so we'll
what the-
discuss it again on the meeting on the 20th. Yes or no? We already have an agenda for that meeting?
We sort of do, but we'll adjust it.
Should add that in.
Policy.
Yeah. Okay.
So then it goes back to committee.
Yes. May I have a motion to approve the addendum?
Motion to approve the addendum to the non-instructional personnel list.
Second.
Comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second.
Comments or questions?